Welcome to Six Tackles for another week, preliminary final weekend. Two cracking games coming your way live and free on 9. And we're going to reflect on some of the great prelims on Six Tackles with Gus today. I've gone through the archive and picked out some games I know Gus would have very firm memories of, I hope. A few of them from quite a while ago. Some Ask Gus questions as well today. We've got some wonderful finals in NRLW. It is all happening. Welcome, Gus.
Matthew Thompson, how are you doing?
Sensational. Off the bat, congratulations to the Brisbane Tigers, who are the Queensland Cup champions. They beat Burleigh over the weekend in a very close grand final. But this weekend, old school, baby, South Sydney Rabbitohs versus North Sydney Bears in the New South Wales Cup final.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Bears were the North Sydney Bears were the minor premiers.
Yes.
They were beaten by South Sydney a fortnight ago, and they've come back through the preliminary final to now take on South Sydney again. A top 5, the old-fashioned top 5 in the New South Wales Cup. And that game up in Queensland on the weekend was a terrific grand final. Burleigh Bears, I think, would have been favourites going into that. But
well, they were. They were during the week, but that was without Jonah Pezzett being named in the Brisbane Tigers team, and he came into the team. And a few people that, and I'm sure you've watched a bit of it too, but a few people that have watched it closely have said to me that he is far too good for Queensland Cup footy, and he dominated the grand final.
It was a good game.
Yep. Can the Bears win their first premiership in a century?
It is the Bears. It is the bad news Bears.
You knocked them out a couple of times, didn't you?
Yeah, poor old Bears.
Oh, the poor Bears. Let's hope.
I'm cheering for James Bracey. I hope they win.
I know. He's so excited. And he's so excited about the New South Wales Cup Grand Final. He bleeds North Sydney. All right, plenty to get through on the show today.
No.
That's the rule.
No. Dear.
After Gus said last week, footy players get too much time off, my first question today is it too soon for the clubs that missed the finals to get back to training?
No.
I saw the Gold Coast Titans in the gym yesterday.
Yeah, some of them would have been in the gym. I think most players, do a little bit, or they should be doing something. There's no reason to have a complete break during that time. And players get used to looking, young blokes get used to looking good. You want to maintain, they've got to get their beach body happening and all that. They don't want to let that go. They don't want to get too far out of nick. Yeah, look, my thoughts on all that. It's never too soon. It's never too late.
Back in the gym, the Titans, and I'm sure there's other players from other clubs that are as well.
Well, young blokes, younger blokes should never stop. You're young players that are developing. The harder you're working, it's takes 3 or 4 years, 3 or 4 really good, strong years in the gym to build your NRL body. And then it takes forever to maintain it. It's going to get broken down. It's going to get tested. It's going to get injured. So the more you're doing well on yourself, the better.
Okay.
They're not the things that irritate players, I can tell you.
Oh, well, good to see the Titans focused. I saw Jaden Campbell was one of those Titans players in the gym. He could benefit from that. He's got all the gifts. Needs to put a bit of size on, maybe. Harry Grant off the bench. Good idea?
No. No, I don't think so. I'd like my best players out there. Sometimes you do it just to protect them every now and then if you think they're going to be targeted. And I'd imagine that's the reason. I can't think of any other reason to be leaving him off the field. He's their main man. I mean, you can't win the game in the first 20 minutes, but you can certainly lose it. And that's, Panthers start extremely fast. I can't imagine.
Do you expect he'll start this week?
I don't know. Well, Queensland do it. The Storm do it. I mean, you're talking about Billy Slater and Craig Bellamy. I'm not going to question them if they think it's the right thing to do.
Queensland do have Ben Hunt though.
Yeah. I don't get it, but that's the way they are. Mate, Panthers did it with Appy Coruscant for a time.
He came off the bench in the grand final.
Tigers do it with Appy Coruscant. It's. I think the little blokes will get targeted by their big men early in the game, but there's ways and means around that. I think, but I think the Storm need to be getting to the front and getting to the front early. I can't imagine them giving Penrith a start with the Panthers' defensive system and the way they are. I can't remember the last time Panthers got run down in a game. I think the Storm, if they're going to win, need to get out of the blocks quickly and get to the front, and then maybe protect their points. But I'd certainly have Harry out there, but I'm not the Melbourne Storm at all.
Okay, on the other side of halfway, playing Jarome Luai this weekend for the Panthers is too big a risk. He's been named.
Yeah, he's been named, and the word is that he'll play, which I find amazing. I gave him a 1,000,000 to 1 chance. And look, I will say this, there's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance of him being 100% fit. I'll guarantee that. So, and unless you're out there, unless you're part of the medical team and in the inner sanctum, and we only go on what we see in the newspapers. Newspaper reports that Jarome Luai dislocated his shoulder, it came out of the joint, and they couldn't get it back in until he went back into the dressing room.
Yeah,
short of a miracle, that causes significant damage in that region and will eventually require a reconstruction at some stage. Sometimes you hold them off for a while and do it at the end of the season, and I know there's big games at stake here if they could get them back in, but it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get the pain out of that and to get the movement back into it, and then to get some strength into it so that it won't happen again, or that you reduce the risk of it happening again. I can imagine if he plays with strapping, which is going to inhibit his passing. It's not like a front rower or a winger who just got to catch the ball and run with it. It's a 5'8" whose game is all about passing and illusion and throwing dummies and all that sort of thing. He's also playing on the edge of the field where I can imagine Bigger Sofa Solomona will be lining him up, and Eli Couture, there's a couple of big boys there that'll be heading in his direction. So he's going to need some protection from the inside and the outside. If it were a grand final, well, yep, you throw your last man in. That's the old rules. In your most important games, throw your last man in. I don't think they need Jarome to beat the Melbourne Storm. And if they're going to get one game out of him, I'd want it to be next week and not this week. It would be my thought. But he might be sweet, mate. Word is that he did contact on Monday and came through it okay, and they're going to play him.
I've read he might not even. They don't know that he even needs surgery.
Well, then the initial medical report might have been a bit misleading. I can't imagine
His arm was dislocated when he came off the field. Well, absolutely.
That being the case, it's something of a miracle for him to be coming back in a month in a game like this. Now, I gave him a 1,000,000 to 1 chance of playing.
Did you?
But
if he on it?
if he plays, he's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance of being 100% right.
Okay.
He will certainly be inconvenienced by it.
Jack Cogger's in 14. Sonny Luke seems to be out of favour there a little bit, but so Cogger's been 14 on a few occasions this year, but he gives them cover at 6 and 9.
He can do both. Yep.
So maybe that is one of the reasons why they will gamble, because they know they've got cover.
Well, what they might do is start with Cogger and only use Luai if they have to.
Yeah, that's not a bad call.
They rarely get through their 8 replacements. I mean, they're all pretty much 80-minute players, everyone in the squad. They don't make too many changes, tactically. It's mainly just a part of the rhythm of the game. So I'm quite sure that they might start with Cogger and have Luai on the bench in case it looks like becoming their last game. So if they're behind with 25 minutes to go and, gee whiz, we're a chance of bowing out here, we'll throw our last man in. That's just what I said. But, crikey, if Melbourne Storm are trying to protect Harry Grant in the first 20 minutes, someone's got to be protecting Jarome Luai if he plays.
Cogger's been going good.
I'm still going to say it. They're all saying he's going to play, and they're all confident that he's going to play. I'm still saying he's a 1,000,000 to 1 of being 100% right. And I'll still be surprised if he runs out in the starting lineup. Maybe they put him on the bench just in case and try to get through with 16 players, instead of, which Penrith can do. Yeah, so anyway, I might be 1,000,000% wrong, but
You've never been wrong.
Or the initial medical reports were misleading. So we'll have to see with that.
That's one of your new signings ringing you.
No.
Should suspensions in club games be applied to rep games?
No.
I don't think so.
So you're happy if you are suspended, like Rhea Hargreaves is, as one example. I'm sure there's others.
Yep.
You're happy for him to play for New Zealand?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And I don't think suspensions in rep games should apply to club games. Either should be a bigger fine or suspension in the same series. So if you got suspended in game 1 of the Origin series, you got 2 weeks where you don't play the next 2 Origins, but you can go back and play for your club.
That's a good point. With the clubs concerned, increasingly concerned about the toll that Origin takes on club football.
Yeah.
If you were to give them that, so well, if you get suspended in Origin, you can still play for your club. They could tolerate that.
Short of picking up a chair and hitting someone over the head, is what I'm saying. Right. I mean, if it's just for the normal run-of-the-mill stuff that we seem to suspend people for.
Yeah.
You know, I just, and all this loading and all that sort of stuff that ends up with big, long suspensions for rather minor incidents leaves me cold. You lead to situations like this. I assume you're referring to Jared Ware-Hargreaves.
Well, that's one of them, yeah.
Yeah, I've always wanted to make a distinction between the two. And I think finals games should account for more than one game as well. So if you got suspended and missed a grand final, it should count for 2 or 3. That's a huge penalty. I don't think that the length of the suspension necessarily matches the punishment that's worthy sometimes. And, whether you're out for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, does it really matter? Does it really teach you any more of a lesson? I don't, what we're trying to do is make sure that it doesn't happen again, isn't it? That's what we're trying to do. I would think.
Just picturing someone picking up a chair and smash. That goes back to the wrestling days. Did Haystacks Colquhoun used to do that? Did he ever pick a chair up?
No, I think they picked it up on Haystacks. I think someone, they used to take big ballpoint pens in the thing and pretend to jab them with it and everything. They had chairs. There was never seemed to be any rules in World Championship Wrestling. You could do what you like.
Yeah.
Picked up a phone and hit him over the head one time.
A phone?
I don't know why they had
what sort of a phone?
I don't know why they had a phone near the ring. One of them old ones used to do.
With the dial one?
With the dial, yeah.
Oh, they're heavy.
Yeah.
That'd hurt.
Yeah. I don't know what was doing ringside with the wrestling.
just in case you needed it.
Yeah.
Did Haystacks, he'd take a bit of stopping, old Haystacks?
Big Haystacks, yeah. Once he flopped on you, you were done. That was it. That was the end of yours.
He'd give away 6 again too much, Haystacks.
Yeah, he was a flopper.
Now, this is a curious question, but I'm interested in your answer. Winning a preliminary final is harder than winning a grand final.
No.
The reason I ask, a few ex-players have told me over the years they found winning the prelim almost harder from a mental point of view to get to the grand final. It's so close, you know. I don't know what that says about their mentality or whatever, but is it? Well, as a coach, can you sort of understand the viewpoint there a little bit?
The game is no harder to win.
No.
Right. But if you're being affected by the result of the game, what the future might bring, missing out on the grand final or playing in a grand final, does that mean you're relaxed now you're in the grand final? It doesn't matter if we lose the grand final. Now that we got here, that's far enough. Gee whiz, when you lose a grand final, you find out that's not right. Just getting there is not satisfactory. You've got to lose one of those to realise that. But yeah, preliminary finals are a nervous time because your season sort of comes down to this, and you've got to get through this one and into the big game. There's a big reward for this to get to the grand final, but the bigger reward comes the following week. That's why they call it the grand final. This is the preliminary final. I don't know that I've ever made a distinction between the two.
Did you used to treat these games the same?
What do you mean?
In terms of preparation, like these big ticket games?
Well, yeah.
You did?
No,
you didn't change anything?
Well, yeah, depending on how your season's gone, depending whether you had a fortnight's break leading into a final, and what sort of break you had leading into your first semi-final, where it was played, who you're playing against. Like every game is subtly different. You try to keep routine in your system and routine for the players because players respond to routine. It's easier for them.
That's sort of what I mean. Like, did you alter routine very much?
No, your routine would be very, very similar to what you've done throughout the year. And if you had to travel, your travel day, you get into your routine of when you train, when you have your captain's run, when you travel. Sometimes, if you've had a few travels in a row, you might travel earlier and go into camp and stay for a few days. And it mixes up all through the year. Like back in the old days when it was just a Sydney competition, everyone drove to the game. We didn't have buses to the game and all that rubbish. You just drove to the game. And
wasn't Mick Cronin late to a grand final one day, or nearly?
No, it could have been.
Missed the warm-up?
Got a bit...
there was an accident coming up from Gerringong.
Yeah, it gets a bit hectic there at Moore Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, so travel is a big thing. Travel is a big thing that can... But you do it so often during the season, you have a routine for it. depending whether you're going north, south, or over to New Zealand, or coming from New Zealand like they do it every second week. They're travelling to Australia. It's a big. It's only a couple of hours, but it's still big. It's time zone and all that sort of thing as well.
Oh, it's punishing. You got to get your passport and immigration and all that.
Yeah, it's
painful.
It's a big thing.
When you took your team...
Imagine if they're playing in Newcastle or Canberra or something like that. They're not flying from Auckland to Canberra.
No.
They're flying to Sydney and then they're busing down to there or getting on another plane and going to there.
Well, Penrith was an example. I know it's only a drive, but it's an hour at least. When they flew to Sydney, had to drive to Penrith.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad on weekends, but now they're getting all the Thursday and Friday night games, which is pretty hard
that's right.
to get out there in the traffic. You've got to get out there early.
Speaking of camps, when you took your 1990 Penrith team to camp in the city and they played up, did you go into camp the next year?
Yep.
You did?
Yeah. Well, we had to because it was the grand final breakfast.
Oh,
That's why we were in town for the grand final breakfast.
Did you dread the grand final breakfast of 91?
No, because I had no idea what was happening in 90.
Did you issue some rules?
You can take the boys out of Penrith. You can't take the Penrith out of the boys.
Oh, I love how they talk about, we never really used to go out in the city at all, so we thought this was a great chance to...
Yeah, there's an old story about that. It's, and I know who instigated it, and I know why he did it, and he told me the next day.
Yeah, it was Mark Guy, wasn't it?
No, it was Chris Mortimer.
Oh, it was Chris Mortimer?
Chris Mortimer, because when Chris Mortimer was a young bloke at the Bulldogs, that's what they did.
Oh.
They had a drink a couple of nights out from the game because the old blokes said the young blokes were too nervous, so they wanted to have a drink together. That's rubbish. The old blokes just wanted to have a drink. That's what they usually did. They didn't care it was a grand final. So Chris Mortimer didn't want our boys to be nervous. He thought they were a little bit nervous, so they decided to have a couple of drinks. And it was Thursday. We didn't play till Sunday, and it didn't cost us the game. But
it didn't.
No, but it didn't happen the next year. I can guarantee you that.
So the problem was. Some of the young
guys... There was only two blokes left out of the 1991, and that was Royce Simmons and me. We were the only two that didn't know what was going on. I went down there and I said, can you believe these blokes? Royce wanted to fight everyone. He just wanted to fight them all.
So, sorry, this is 1990?
1990, yeah.
So he didn't go to the drink?
No, he wasn't in it. He was in his bed.
Why did they leave Royce out? Because they know he'd blow up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what time did you walk in and catch him?
I went to the movies with my girlfriend.
Oh.
Yeah.
But when did you
I took the team for dinner.
Oh.
Took the team for dinner. We usually go for dinner. We go and have a pasta dinner or something. We had our routine set out, and I took them back to the hotel, and I figured they'd just go to the room and watch movies or do whatever they had to do, because we had to be up. See, the grand final breakfast was the next morning in at the Regent Hotel, and the breakfast started at 7 o'clock in the morning. So rather than getting them up at 4 o'clock at Penrith to get a bus in the traffic, we thought we'd go and stay there the night before. So we said to the league, well, we're not driving in from Penrith. We're staying the night before, right? Well...
So then you got back from dinner,
and
they drank
they went for dinner, and we took them back to the hotel, and then I'd arranged to meet my girlfriend down the road, and we went down to George Street there and went to the movies. Popcorn.
Chopped
tops and the whole business like that, right? And I come back to the hotel, and I'm walking to my room, and I could hear this noise.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what time did you catch them? Like, wouldn't have been that late, would it?
Yeah, about 11:30.
Right.
It was about 11:30, I suppose. Yeah.
So that hadn't done that much damage, had they?
No.
So you stopped the whole thing at 11:30?
I didn't stop it. It was blown out of all proportion.
Oh.
I think they stopped once they knew I knew. Yeah.
Oh.
It didn't go much longer.
I got the feeling it was like till 4 o'clock in the morning.
No, nothing like that.
Right.
Nothing. No, it was blown. It was blown out of all proportion.
Oh, right. Well, that's all baloney.
And I said to them the next morning, I said, I don't know who was in that room. I said, I didn't take notes. I said, but whoever was in that room, I said, you get yourself to Penrith Park this afternoon, open the gym up on the boxing bags and go and sweat that rubbish out. So I drove past the ground about 6 o'clock that night. Every car was in the car park.
At least they listened to you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Good on you, boys. You got your revenge the next year. Now, some classic prelims. I thought this would be a fun little walk down memory lane. Now, I've started with one that you would remember.
That's why it's a different planet back in the 80s, isn't it? Like, it's a different planet back then.
Teams are on booze bans now.
No, they don't drink.
Yeah. Some of them
they don't get time. They train,
2000, Gus, do you remember the Roosters and the Knights prelim?
The Roosters and the Knights, I called that game, actually.
Do you remember how this was touted as the clash between Johns and Fittler?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the crowd tonight. And... Oh, intercepted! And it is Brad. He's away inside.
Try for Brad Fittler. Fittler intercepts.
So we're very lucky to work with both of those gentlemen here, and Andrew doesn't bristle it very much anymore because he had such a decorated career. But one of his great regrets is that pass, which Freddie nabbed and scored. It was 16-2 Newcastle at half time.
Yeah, and
Joey dominated the first half. Freddie dominated the second.
I called the game, and I remember distinctly saying just before half time, the Roosters can win this. They're down 16-2, but the trend here, and knowing what I'd seen of the Knights that year, the Roosters could win it. And I think that was the second try in the Roosters' comeback. Was Andrew Johns went across field to his right, round about halfway, and I could just see Brad Fittler, because he was a pretty good interceptor, Brad Fittler. He read it pretty well, and he launched onto that. And even though that got them back, I think Newcastle was still in front. That was the end of the game. That was the play.
From 16-2, they scored 3 tries in 5 minutes, to lead 2016, and eventually won the game 26 points to 20.
Yeah. We'd actually done it to Newcastle at their home ground, I think back in 98. Was it 98? We went to Newcastle to play a home semi-final up there, and they might have led us 15-0 at half-time. That was Johns with the first half field goal. And I remember going in the dressing room, I said, Andrew Johns thinks that's enough. That's why he's kicked the field goal.
That's right, yes.
He thinks 15 points will be enough. I said, it'll be nowhere near enough. I think we won 32-15 or something. But, which was my favour about the first half field goal started back then. But in that game here, in particular, in the commentary, I was actually predicting it long before it happened that the Roosters would storm home over the top of them, and they did. It was a big win, got them into their grand final.
Am I right in saying the late Graham Murray was Roosters coach? I think he was.
Yeah.
And they were beaten narrowly by Brisbane. I think it was 14-6.
14-6 in the grand final, yeah.
And Freddie reckons they had chances to win that. But that was a classic between two of the game's greats. Now, this one, 1998. Bulldog 32, Eel 20.
Glenn Hughes. Long ball for Silver. Then Talau in the corner. Canterbury are in again. Parramatta are walking. Now Halligan from the touchline to level.
Well, if you want anybody to take this kick, it's D. Halligan.
Has there been a more important kick for Daryl Halligan? Has there been a more important kick for Canterbury? He hits it. If it hooks it, it's staying on the line. He's got it. The man is a messiah.
He's a freak. That's it, freak.
One of the great goals. Do you know the score in this game with 11 minutes to go?
They led by a lot.
Parramatta 18 Canterbury 2.
Yeah.
It was, so that kick was to level it, obviously, as you heard there in the audio, to take it to extra time, and the Bulldogs won 32-20.
It went to extra time,
Yeah. What an incredible 18-2 with 11 to go.
Yeah. Parramatta imploded.
Oh.
Just absolutely imploded.
Was that the Paul Carriage game?
That's, unfortunately. Absolutely imploded. It was incredible.
Wow. Daryl Halligan, though, that you guys often say that if you're a goal kicker, that's the scenario you want.
Well,
he's just drilled it.
You've done it a million times in your practice. You've done it in the backyard as a kid. You've practiced those moments, all the time. And then suddenly, there it is. You're faced with it. It was one of the great pressure goals.
Craig Polamauna played with a broken collarbone, I think. Scored 2 tries in that game. And so that was a top 10. Canterbury were 9th.
Yeah.
And they got through to the grand final.
Yeah, they did.
An amazing effort. That was one of the clutch plays in the history of the game, you'd have to say. Let's fast forward to 2014 and an historic season for the Foundation Club, the famous Bunnies.
So this time it's John Sutton. Turns it back for Greg Inglis. He dives over. He'll do the goanna.
Yes, so Souths had been beaten in the prelim the 2 years prior, and they needed to win this to make their first grand final since 1971. Canterbury beat them in 12. Manly beat them in 13. And they trailed early in the game against the Roosters They were down 12-0 actually.
Yeah,
but
I think the
Greg
Roosters...
Inglis scored 2 tries and he was the best player on the field, and they got through.
Yeah, Roosters jumped out of the blocks that night.
Yep.
And posted a big lead. But South Sydney were way too good in the end. Way too good.
30-22, and they went on to win the grand final. But Inglis dominant in a preliminary final, and we saw the goanna then in the grand final later on.
Panthers played Bulldogs in the other preliminary final that year. We got through to the top 4.
And if I remember, there were about 10 blokes out of that Penrith team.
Yeah, there were. We only beaten 18-12, which was a great result for the season. But Bulldogs went on to play South in the grand final, and South Sydney were way too good for them. That was the Sam Burgess, James Graham clash in the first minute of the game, the first tackle of the game. That did his cheekbone.
Yes. GI, what a player in big games. Now, I threw this one in because in prelims, there's always some sort of a controversy, and there have been fewer, bigger controversies in recent history in prelims than this.
Moylan, lovely ball. Holmes linking up with the tally, and it's Josiah Becky is bundled over by Slater. Although it's a shoulder charge.
Well, it's a try-saving shoulder charge.
In his final game at Amy Park, Billy Slater was immense as the Storm advanced to their 3rd consecutive grand final with a dominant win over the Sharks. It was 22-6. The 35-year-old fullback scored 2 tries and laid on another for halfback Brody Croft in a man-of-the-match display. But at full time, there was only one talking point. Slater's shoulder charge on Sasai Feki in the 14th minute of the match. So what happened after that, Gus?
We got off with the judiciary.
That's right. He got charged and he had to go to town and plead his case.
Yeah, but these are the things they didn't consider when they removed the shoulder charge, or they made up the shoulder charge rule, or they didn't even know what the shoulder charge interpretation should be at the time. But it was, all fullbacks defended like that. They put their body on the line to bundle big wingers into touch. It was a great cover defending, try-saving tackle. And then they wanted to charge him, but he found a way off.
It was a big story, though, wasn't it?
It was a big story. It was a big story.
Slater even received support from Cronulla coach Shane Flanagan, who told reporters Slater should 100% be allowed to play in the grand final. He hit him with one shoulder and one hand. What do you want him to do there? For his team, he needs to save that try. He did his best.
100%. 100%.
I wonder if there'll be drama this week.
There's always
a bit of drama.
There's
always a bit of drama. Remember Cam got suspended from a grand final? They got flogged 40-0.
Someone will get charged.
Anyway.
Well, they could have done it last week and they didn't.
What's your favourite prelim memory?
My favourite prelim.
I mean, you had top 5s, didn't you?
Yeah, back in the old days.
What was the one? What was the North Sydney?
Well, in the top 5s that I went to, we went straight through to the grand final. I didn't have to go through a preliminary final, I don't think.
Did you not lose one? No.
No.
Oh, right.
I lost a couple of preliminary finals with the Roosters back in the 90s.
Right.
I think we made the preliminary final 2 or 3 years in a row.
Well, it's a nervous weekend for the fans in particular because everyone wants to see their team win the comp, but to get your team in the grand final is a big deal for the fans out there. So there's 4 nervous sets of fans, and we'll preview the games very soon.
Well, what we've got 2 teams that are now old stages at this stage of the year. I mean, the Storm have been there forever. The Panthers have made the top 8 of the last 10 years now. It's been an extraordinary era in their history. And you've got the 2 other teams, Broncos and Warriors, who both missed the 8 last year. So one team who missed the 8 last year is going to play in this year's grand final, which is a fair achievement.
It is. On the side, we talked about having camps and staying away and etc. So the plans are evolving for the 4 teams that are going to play in Vegas next year. I thought I'd run these by you.
Mm-hmm.
So they've all got different sort of outlooks on what they may do. The Roosters are expecting to fly into Los Angeles for 5 or 6 days before arriving in LA on February 28, which is a week before. Souths are deciding between basing themselves in San Diego or Los Angeles for 8 or 9 days. That'd be nice. Before getting to Vegas on the same date, February 28. The Broncos are expected to fly to LA for 5 or 6 days before arriving in LA on the same date. And Manly, they're going straight to Vegas, baby. 10 days in Vegas beforehand. What could go wrong?
9 or 10 days.
What could possibly go wrong?
Don't know. Lucky they didn't send my Panthers to
What would you...
I couldn't look after him for one night in Sydney. How would I have gone for 9 days in Vegas?
What would you be doing? Would you say, righto, boys, let's just go. We're going to stay at the Bellagio. Straight in?
No.
Do you reckon there's some nervous CEOs?
No. Not in this day and age. It'll be sweet. It'll be sweet. Gee whiz, if we'd have taken teams from the 80s.
I'd loved them.
Well, it was life without mobile phones and cameras, mate. It was life without rules back in the 80s.
Oh.
There were no rules.
Yeah.
That was the rules. The rules are there are no rules.
Yes, what happens on tour stays on tour.
Absolutely.
So they're talking about basing them. You know more about this. I mean, there's some sort of resort complex half an hour out of. Is it half an hour? Maybe a few k's out of Vegas. They're going to stay at.
I'm sure they'll be very well looked after.
Yeah.
The best of the best there.
It's going to be a spectacular start to the year. Manly expected to fly straight to Vegas and base themselves there for 9 to 10 days. You run out of money yet? Who have you signed?
Who?
I had to laugh. I heard you on 100% footy. You said, well, there's a 10-day cooling off period with the contracts. Like these blokes are going to change their mind. Have you got any contracts back?
No.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Oh.
Nothing for the press.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Are you going to sign Alex Twal? You need a try scorer.
He's on a roll now, isn't he? He scored 1.
Are you interested in Alex Twal?
Coach spoke to him this week.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
He's a real toiler, isn't he?
Yeah. I think Manly and the Tigers are discussing perhaps a trade or a swap with Alex.
Oh.
So yeah, we'll know more next week what his intentions are, and we've got to decide whether or not that's right for us as well. Alex has got to decide if that's right for him, but yeah, there's very, very little out there on the market. So when a player like that comes on the market, I guess you've got to do your due diligence and have a chat. So the coach went and had a chat with him this week.
There you go. Breaking news.
And in a world with mobile phones and cameras, someone had to take a photo of it and send it to the media.
Oh, was there another photo?
Yeah, if they wanted it to be secret, they wouldn't.
Where's the? I haven't seen the photo.
Haven't you?
No.
Oh, I got text messages within 5 minutes. And I've got a photo of this, I've got a photo of that. Oh, what do you want to do?
Who cares?
If it was going to be secret, you wouldn't be getting a photo of it.
Gus has got his secret dungeon where he has those sorts of meetings. How boring. Taking a photo of someone having a coffee with a player.
Oh, but people do it because the media has an appetite for it.
Really? Does anyone care?
Well, I don't read papers. And
Breaking news. Off-contract player talks to NRL club.
Yeah, breaking news. Man goes to coffee shop.
Ask us. Jarome. Not Jareme. Jarome. Where should the NRL expand first? Perth, PNG, or a second New Zealand team?
Brisbane.
Oh, I think you've mentioned that before.
Yep.
Another one?
Yep.
What about New Zealand?
Eventually. Not yet. They're not ready for one yet.
What about Perth? I'm starting to warm to Perth.
Perhaps. But it would be third option for me.
Okay. And
I think the one that's under serious consideration because the governments are involved is PNG. And it's for other people to talk about that, not me.
We've got the Prime Minister's 13 against PNG this week.
Yes, we have. Yes.
We'll see it on 9, both the men's and the women's.
You ever been to PNG?
Never.
Interesting place.
I've heard. When I was doing Queensland Cup a long time ago, when the Hunters first came in, we were never able to go there because they weren't. Well, it was quite an expensive operation, but I think there's a fair bit of security that goes along with going there as well because they're just nuts about rugby league.
Yeah, I was actually involved in the discussions around getting them back into the Queensland Cup at that time, and some other discussions around PNG and development up there and schools programs. And the Prime Minister was keen to get rugby league back in the schools because that got the kids to school.
Oh, you've talked about that, yeah.
I went up there a number of times.
All right. Now, Pokey's asked you a question regarding tactics. How would you set up your team to beat Penrith? They seem to be playing well within themselves, haven't been tested. Not sure that's true. What would your game plan be?
Well, the one thing about Panthers are they respect what their opposition does. So if you actually were prepared to go blow for blow with them, set for set, control the ball, kick, chase, tackle, control the ball, kick, chase, tackle, control the ball, kick, chase, tackle, set after set after set after set, and keep giving them the ball at the other end of the field, Panthers will respect that and just play in kind. They'll do the same way. They'll do the same thing. They won't try to beat you from their own end of the field. What they'll do is back their fitness and their strength and Nathan Cleary's kicking game and their resilience to wear you down. They call it a cycle. Right? They get into a cycle. They get into a grind. Right? And it's been coached into them for over a decade. It's just how we coach the young academy kids there, and it's part of learning to play big-time football. And they've become very, very good at it. So they will respect what they call the grind and back themselves to do it. They don't need to beat you by 100. They just need to break you at that point. And what they'll do is they just break teams' will. They just wear them down. And what breaks the cycle? We hit it up for 4 or 5 tackles and kick. You hit it up for 4 or 5 tackles and kick. And they will, if you want to keep doing that and you keep doing it well, they will respect it. They won't panic and try to beat you from their own end of the field. They won't suddenly start throwing cut-out passes and chip kicks and looking for a different way or trying to find 40-20s out of nowhere. Which a lot of teams will do. So what breaks the cycle of hit it up, kick, hit it up, kick, hit it up, kick, hit it up, kick? And we've got that fatigue monitor on our screens, don't we? We're talking about when you get to around about 5 minutes, you start to test the friendship with a lot of players and a lot of teams. The bad teams just crack at that time. Panthers will believe they can go forever. They believe you will crack before them. What breaks the cycle? Well, one team drops the ball, one team kicks out on the full, one team misses a tackle, one team gives away a penalty, one team kicks the ball dead. There are all these things that will break the cycle. What causes those things to happen? A drop ball or a kick out on the full or a missed tackle or a penalty. What causes that? Pressure. So they'll get into a grind, they'll get into a cycle, and they will back themselves to wear you down in that cycle. Then when you've worn down, you've given away the penalty or you've dropped the ball or you've kicked the ball out on the full, now we start our set of 6 in your half of the field, which means our 5th tackle option, right, if we get that far, is now going to be an attacking kick or Nathan Cleary, Jarome Luai, Grower kicking the ball into the in goal or just getting tackled a metre out and letting you have the ball, or we'll score a try and then we'll start the grind all over again. And then once they've got you at their end of the field, they don't let up. Right? Penrith this year statistically dominate possession more than any team in the competition. They have their share of possession is greater than everybody else's because they're able to repeat sets and force opposition into errors and early tackles. So now, you're out of that grind and you're into a new one. You're into a survival mode, defending your own line and then trying to work the ball off your own line and kicking from your own 30. Now they're catching the ball on the full and running back into your half on tackle
and
1.
Edwards is sprinting back.
Yeah, and then what happens? How do you get out of that? Well, you give away a penalty and you might kick for goal. You'll give away a 6 again. They get an extra set and you wear yourself down with fatigue. They score a try. And what happens then? Come back, kick off to us. We'll start again. We'll start that grind thing again. How do you like it this time?
Yep.
And that's what happens. So, to me, all this, I will just throw the ball around and Hail Mary and fluke it and try and score a few quick tries. That won't work. You might get a result for 20 minutes. You might get a result maybe on one day, but that's not. You've got to beat them at that, and you've got to wear them down and break their will.
Is Melbourne the team that can get into the cycle of the last 4 teams remaining?
Melbourne teams of the past could, yes. Melbourne teams of the past could, but I'm not so sure that this team is wired like that. I'm not sure that Melbourne Storm is the great grinding team it used to be. They used to be like soldier crabs. I used to call them soldier crabs, marching up the beach the whole time. They just didn't make mistakes. They were machine-like. They were repetitious, but it's a different sort of Melbourne Storm mentality these days, I don't think the Melbourne Storm can, for 80 minutes, outgrind Panthers. I don't think so. I think Adam Reynolds and that very young side may be able to get into the grind for a long period of time. They're very fit, they're very fast, and Adam Reynolds is the controller. He's a game manager.
But they don't like playing like that.
Warriors have become very good at it. It's been the big transition in the Warriors football this year. If you remember that day at the Bermuda Triangle where they came from 20-0 down with 12 men. Yeah. To beat the Sharks, and they did it. They did it not by throwing the ball around in old Warrior style. They did it by grinding away and wearing down the patience of the Cronulla Sharks. So, yeah, regardless, if you hope to beat and the problem is, the lesser teams can't do that. Yeah, they just can't. They haven't. Someone will break. Someone will crack. Right, where the Panthers have just been. They've just become so good at applying that pressure and withstanding pressure. And other teams just aren't. And that's why we've got the big gap in the competition.
So you reckon Bellamy will be talking about, like, will he be, will they be looking to slow the ruck and make it an ugly game? Well, that'd be
I don't
that'd
think
be
you
their
need to.
main
I don't
go.
think you need to prioritise slowing the ruck, because then you give away a chance to give away penalties. The whole key to it, defence is always easier at the opposition ends of the field. So for me, that part of the game has never changed. It's become harder these days because of the way the game is refereed, and the speed of the play of the ball is artificially created, and momentum is artificially created. It's kind of like referees feel obliged to help teams out of trouble sometimes. Referees can't get into the grind. Right? Referees are breaking the grind more than anyone. Um, you know, anyway, it's a story for another day. But yeah, I think that's your best chance, particularly if you've come this far in the competition. If you've got down to the final four, you should be able to grind. You should be able to do that and then take it. Now, their defence is very, very good, but everyone's defence will give out on their goal line eventually if you can get enough ball up that end of the field. And, there are a couple of little areas where they're suspect. By all reports, they're going to be playing with an injured player on the edge of the field this week. They're not perfect. Why the Panthers' defence is so good is because their ball control is so good. They're only defending at the opposition end of the field. That's why their defence is so good. They're very rarely under pressure, field position wise. And if they're under pressure for one set or maybe two, then they work the ball out and they turn the advantage again. So it's it's defence is where you're making it more than anything, and how much of it you're doing, and that's where the Panthers are very good.
Great question, Pokey. Great answer from Gus. Great insight. Eck has asked you the same question about the Warriors against the Broncos. How would you be preparing the Warriors? Now, you've talked about how that was their day, and it really was. It was a replica of what happened the week before in Newcastle.
Yep.
Now the Broncos get their day. How do the Warriors fire up and go and beat the Broncos on their day?
Very difficult. Extremely difficult. Not easy at all. What time's the game being played?
Evening.
Yeah, what time? 8 p.m.
Yeah, so
kick off.
it's 10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock in New Zealand, so there's other issues that How would you like? And the game will finish at midnight in New Zealand, so it's they're the sort of things that they contend with all the time.
What about tactically? How would you prepare them tactically?
For the Warriors, first time in, they need to go with what they've done all year. They need to stick to their process and stick what's served them well up to this period of time. And I think that Andrew Webster's done a marvellous job. He's taken a lot of what he learned at the Panthers across to the Warriors in their defensive system and into their ball control game. Sean Johnson has been the perfect game manager for them. Plays a very similar type game to what Nathan Cleary plays. The Warriors, if they can get over the emotional hurdle and the physical drain of what happened last week, and it shouldn't have been too much of a physical drain because, the Knights won 30-28. The game was in the balance the whole way. The Warriors were able to rest a couple of players late in the game, and the game probably wasn't as intense for the last 20 or 30 minutes. So you've conserved a little bit of physical energy there. It's more the emotional thing and, of course, the crowd support. And, we've seen New South Wales teams go to Suncorp Stadium and be caught like deer in the headlights. I don't think that'll happen to the Warriors, but they're certainly not going to have many friends up there, and it's going to be all Bronco support. It's a difficult ask for them. But they're football-wise, they've got the ability to trouble the Broncos. They've got the ability to at least put pressure on the Broncos, who themselves, the oxygen gets pretty thin at this time of year. You're right towards the top of the mountain in this, and this Broncos team, like I said, it's not a mature team. It's a very talented team. They're going to rely heavily on the experience of Adam Reynolds. Anyway, I didn't want to do the preview now, but
no, it's good.
Yeah, but the Warriors have got the game to ask the questions of the Brisbane. I'll tell you what Warriors can do. Warriors can help Brisbane beat themselves. That's what the Warriors can do. They can help Brisbane beat themselves.
Explain.
Well, but they can put enough pressure onto the Broncos that gets them out of their comfort zone and gets them, because they've got that little bit of flightiness in them. They've got that little bit of, Reece Walsh is a superstar, but he's still a speculator. They've got players in their team that speculate.
Yeah.
Adam Reynolds will be trying to rein that in as much as possible, I'd imagine. But the Warriors can certainly take them to a place where they might start to question whether or not they need to be doing more than they need to do. It's not easy. It's not easy to learn, as the Panthers have done and the Storm have done and the Roosters have done over the years, and they've been the dominant sides. It's not easy to hold your nerve and grind and trust your system for a full 80 minutes when threatened with a loss or threatened with bad luck or injury or, sin bins and all that sort of thing. You can be put on what I call, you get put on tilt. Broncos can be put on tilt. This is the first time for a lot of them.
I'm sensing. I mean, I know you're expecting both the favourites to win. I'm sensing that if there is to be a team, an outsider win, I'm sensing you think it might be the Warriors over the Broncos.
Yeah, could.
The more likely of the two.
I don't think that will happen.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if
Yeah.
Panthers get beaten. I won't be shocked if Broncos get beaten.
You won't?
I won't be shocked.
Mm.
No, I won't be shocked.
Okay.
I don't think it'll happen, but I won't be shocked either.
Okay.
Because, Broncos, they're new too. They missed the 8 last year too. Right? It could be a learning experience for them. It's just what happens at this time of year. You've got to kind of experience it to know that. That's why Adam Reynolds is so crucial to them. Capewell is going to be so crucial to them. Having those couple of players there, I think, will be a big benefit to them.
Thank you, Eka, who is a Warriors fan, because he's asking what the Warriors have to do to break down the Broncos for a famous victory. With a name like Eka, Gus, I thought he would be a Queenslander, because they have the Eka every year.
Is that how it works, does it?
Well, the Eka is like the Easter show, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wood chopping and all that.
Well, that's 10 seconds of my life I won't get back.
Jimmy asks if the Knights are going to continue to trend upwards next year.
Yeah, I think they will. Oh, sorry, we're not doing yes, no. I was waiting for the music then.
No, we've moved on from that.
I've moved on from that. I was nodding my head, thought he was going to play the music.
Well, you can if you want.
Can the Knights
Will they continue to
Yeah,
trend
yeah, they should get great confidence and great benefit out of that. Of course they should. Yeah, they can trend. It's going to be hard for a lot of teams to improve. There's not much on. There's nothing on the market that you can go out and be readily or quickly improving your team overnight.
They've lost Dominic Young.
The player market's the most. Well, Dominic Young probably won them 3 or 4 games himself this year. His big plays actually won them games. Right? Actually won them games. It's going to be hard to replace that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they did spend a lot of time earlier in the year without Kalen Ponga too.
True.
If he plays the whole year, and they'll gain a lot of confidence out of what happened. They can certainly keep improving. No risk. I think it would have been a wonderful experience for them.
What do you reckon they'll do with Cogger? Because they've got those 2 blokes who got them there. So Clune's going to the Super League.
Happens sometimes. You go out and buy a player, and then all of a sudden the players you've got in those positions that you're either concerned about or didn't consider bubble up and do a good job. It just gives you more depth. Gives you more. I think Jack Cogger started at the Knights, didn't he?
He did.
He was as a young
when
fella.
they were getting their.
I actually gave Jack Cogger an award. I went to a school up over on the north side over here somewhere, up towards Pimble somewhere, up on the main road there, the highway. Was a school, and I was the guest at the school presentation night, and Jack Cogger was the Sportsman of the Year.
Oh, that's good.
He was only 15 or 16 at the time, I think. He was the Sportsman of the Year.
Is he a multi-talented sportsman?
Yeah, he played a lot of sports. As a young fella. So I followed his career with interest after that. I think he went to Newcastle, he went to the Bulldogs.
Yeah, he did. He was at Canterbury. Who's the... you've done a lot of those presentations. Who... Can you think of someone who you gave an award to who was a very, very young kid who became a superstar?
Young kid who became a superstar? Ooh. No. Not offhand.
I'll give you some thinking time. Jamie O. What position's Jack Wighton?
I can think of one.
Yeah.
Nathan Cleary.
Oh, fair enough. Yes. He counts. What position's Jack Wighton going to play for the Rabbitohs? Asked Jamie O.
Well, they've signed him to play centre.
They have? Yep.
Yeah. Signed him to play centre. So I can only assume that's where he'll start. Where he ends up, I don't know. He ended up playing centre for the Raiders.
I know.
At the back end of the year. He's a very good centre. When he was playing fullback and 5'8" for the Raiders, I kept telling the Origin blokes, if you need a left centre, he is a perfect left centre for Origin. And I think he replaced Latrell Mitchell a few years ago. The first year that Brad Fittler coached Origin, I think they replaced Latrell after game 1, and Jack Wighton went in for game 2, and they won by a big score over in Perth. He's a perfect Origin left centre. No risk in the world.
Geez, on the back of that too, just thinking, no Wighton, I know Frawley's tradesman, but geez, they've got some holes to fill at Canberra.
They've got a lot of money to spend, and they can't spend it. They can't physically spend it. There's not much. I've never seen the market like this. I've never seen the player market like this.
When you say they can't,
and not just now, it's going to be like this for a couple of years because
no one wants to go to Canberra, or they haven't got the players available.
No, there's no players available off contract at the moment. There's some, but they're not the sort of players that are instantly going to come in and make your team and change your fortunes. Players have signed for longer. They've signed for more money. Clubs now know that there's not a lot of depth going around because of the COVID years. Development was inhibited for a long period of time, so we haven't got as many young blokes emerging into the ranks that are ready, NRL ready. It'll get better over the next couple of years there, but players are tightly held. You're not letting go of players that can help you with NRL results, I'll tell you. I've never seen the market quite this tight as it is at the moment.
Saw a couple of articles yesterday about. I actually saw the Cowboys have let a few go off contract.
Well, everyone lets them.
No, but a few players they haven't renewed their contract.
Haven't renewed their contracts.
Jeez, I tell you, one of them was Mitch Dunn. Remember Mitch Dunn came on the scene?
Yeah, he's had a lot of injury issues. Mitch.
He was brilliant when he first came into first grade.
He did an ACL early last year, I think.
He goes good. Last one. Oh yes, Jason. What's the worst game conditions you've ever played or coached in?
The worst game conditions. I used to play in some terrible ones. The funniest one I ever had. I was coaching the Bulldogs, and we went down to play in Wollongong, and the Wollongong ground, the Wollongong showground, used to be a greyhound racing track.
Yes, I think you've said something about this. Yeah.
And the football ground was in the middle. You had to walk across the greyhound track to get, and it went down like that. It dipped down into the middle, and we played down there. It had rained for like 3 days. And you could not see the field. You could not see the sidelines. You could not see the field markings or anything. It was just a sheet of water the whole. And we played, and we won. And Terry Lamb scored a try. He chipped over the top, and they let it bounce. they let it bounce, but it didn't bounce.
It didn't bounce.
It just went plop, and it was kind of like it got up a little splash, and all of a sudden this wave's coming, and it was just like a wave was coming. Terry Lamb has dived from like 10 metres away.
Body surfed
through the water. Knocked him over like 9 pins, like that. Knocked him over like there were 10 pins of that. Knocked him over, and when the wave disappeared, Terry's in the in goal with the ball. He scored a try. It was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was honestly, he dived from 10 metres. He dived from 10 metres away and slid.
A wave,
and the wave just covered everyone. And when they looked, and Terry was in the in goal with the ball,
gotcha.
and he scored the try. Big grin on his face.
Too good.
What a great little player he was.
Oh yes. Oh, very funny. How many dog tracks did we used to have? There's dog tracks everywhere.
Greyhound tracks, yeah, there were.
Everywhere. The Gabba had one.
Yeah.
There's one at where's one?
We used to have a dog track at Penrith.
A dog track at Penrith?
Yep.
Where else?
Everywhere.
They still
Dapto.
race at Bulleye?
Yeah.
I don't think they do that.
Yeah, Bulleye, Dapto, Wollongong, Appin. Used to have a
Appin dogs?
Straight track at Appin.
But there's one out at Bankstown somewhere I drove past.
That's the Greyhound Centre. That's the Greyhound Club. Yeah, it's got a trial track there. They trial dogs there. Well, I don't know if they still do, but there was a couple of tracks out at Burkittsville Park. Richmond had a greyhound track.
They still race at Richmond. They race on Saturday mornings with bacon and egg rolls.
Richmond now, they've got the circle racing and the straight racing at Richmond. They used to have trots at Richmond. They used to have trots at Hawkesbury.
Did they really?
Yeah. Used to have trots at Hawkesbury.
There were so many greyhound tracks.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to the Appin Dogs?
Wentworth Park, Harold Park Dogs.
I
raced dogs at Harold Park Dogs.
I didn't know they had dogs at Harold Park as well.
Oh, yeah, big track.
Wow.
Yeah.
God. How much greyhound racing did we used to have?
Plenty.
Did you ever go to Appin?
Yeah. I raced greyhounds
You did?
at Appin, yeah.
So how long was the straight track?
I think the longest distance was like 300 metres, 312 metres.
Geez, that'd be hard to call, wouldn't it?
Well, they're a long way away. They come straight up the straight.
Oh, very funny. 6 tackles trivia. Last time the Warriors won a preliminary final was in 2011. I don't know what the relevance of this is, Jordan. Who was the NRL's leading point scorer that season? Fair dinkum.
In 2011,
Yeah. So the question is, who was the NRL's leading point scorer in 2011, which happened to be the last time the Warriors played a preliminary final? Warriors made the grand final in 2011, which is also the last time they made a prelim. But the question is, who was the NRL's leading point scorer that season?
crikey.
Okay.
Wait on. Yeah, go on. If you're going to give me a hint, I'll let you. But I think they played Manly in the grand final.
Okay, it was not a Warrior, nor was it a Manly player.
Okay.
However, it was a player who has a link with the Warriors. Well, actually, the country.
A link with the country.
Yeah.
A link with the country.
He was a Kiwi, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. I've worked that part out. Duh. Kiwi, a leading point scorer. No idea.
He was a really good Kiwi.
Well, they're all good.
No, this one's really good.
No.
Benji Marshall.
Benji Marshall was a leading point scorer.
Yeah.
In 2011.
Yeah.
Who was he playing for?
Had to be the West Tigers.
Was he?
Oh, maybe was it with the Dragons?
Was he kicking goals?
Yeah, he kicked goals for
Really?
quite a while.
Wow. I wouldn't have got that.
Well, I was actually watching some highlights. Well, actually, my son was watching. Jacob was watching some highlights the other day of a Brisbane game from a few years back, and Benji popped off the bench. He said, "I didn't realise Benji Marshall played for the Broncos." I said, "Yeah, he probably played half a dozen games."
Yep.
And then he ended up going to Souths,
South.
played the grand final,
Well, he followed Bennett.
went back to the Tigers. Yeah,
Bennett went from Brisbane to South.
he went to rugby, and then he went to the Dragons, then, yeah, in and out of first grade at Brisbane. It's been a pretty amazing career when you think about the way he ended it. He may never have come back to the NRL after he went to rugby. NRLW, round 9 recap. Well, the Final Four is locked in, as we know. So we've got the Knights against the Broncos at McDonald Jones Stadium. What a game. They get a big crowd for that.
They will.
Roosters take on the Titans at Allianz.
Yep.
The Sharkies, what about that? They flogged Parrot. She's Parrot had a bad year. 56-6, first team to score 50 points in the NRLW, and the biggest win in NRLW history. So what do you think about these two matchups? Sunday, 2:05 p.m, Knights, Broncos at McDonald Jones Stadium, Newcastle. What a good clash.
Yeah, two cracking teams. Broncos really coming solid at the back end of the year. I think the Knights will be too strong, though. I think they're the team to beat.
All right, and Roosters, Titans at Allianz.
I think Titans will win that.
Titans to win?
Oh, no, sorry. Roosters will win that. Yep.
Okay. So you're thinking it's going to be a Rooster Knight grand final, and that means Millie Boyle will come up against her old club.
Yeah, and Knights belted them a couple of weeks ago, didn't they? I think they did up there on the big
They
day,
did.
up
They
on
did.
the finals weekend.
Yep. All right, you'll see all of the games live here on Nine's Wide World of Sport, doubleheader on Sunday. So plenty of footy to get through this weekend in both the men's and the women's. Let's have a look at the two prelims for this week. We know Friday night footy will pit the Panthers up against the Melbourne Storm now on Bluebet. What are you really gambling with? gamblinghelponline.org.au. Penrith $1.18. Melbourne $4.90. Now, we've been talking extensively about Jarome Luai. Isaac Tungal has also been named to return from injury. But I do understand there's no certainty about his place in the team. They defend on the same side too, by the way.
They can vary. They can vary. I'd be surprised they wouldn't. If Luai plays, I'll be surprised if Crichton doesn't defend alongside of him.
You think they might switch sides? Okay. He's had a pec problem, and we know Jerome's had that problem with the shoulder. So Cogger to the bench. Garner's also on the interchange. Zach Hosking has been left out, and Peachy's 18th man, so they've got some real depth there. And for Melbourne, Jarome Hughes has been named to return from a calf injury, but Xavier Coates with his ankle remains sidelined.
Yep.
So they get their halfback back, which is obviously critical for their chances.
Yep. Well, I think Panther will win comfortably. Extraordinary to think that Storm are $4.90 in any game of football. That's an extraordinary price, but I'd imagine that's reflective of of what's happened with the market during the course of the season. But Panthers would be extremely hard to beat.
All right, and in the other game, Brisbane, $1.27 favourites, Warriors $3.80, 7:50 kick-off Suncorp Stadium Saturday night. They've had the week off Brisbane. They maintain that selection on the wing with Jesse Arthurs, preferred ahead of Corey Oates. Adam Reynolds, with his little calf complaints, had a week off to rest all that, so he's all good. So is Patrick Carrigan. And same 17 as well for the Warriors with Sean Johnson. How good was Johnson on the weekend?
Yeah.
He's just... It's been so good to watch him
Which is why it adds fuel to my thoughts that had the Penrith semi-final the week before been a grand final, he would have played. And I think they took the very mature decision to stand him down from that game and focus on not that they didn't go there to win. They did. They went there and tried hard, but I think it was a very mature decision to leave him out and make sure that he played in that home game last week. That was the big one. That was great for our game. It was great for the Warriors. It was great for rugby league. And I think it was a very mature decision. So, look, in this one, the Broncos, they probably win 3 out of every 4 or 4 out of every 5 times this game's played. But is this the one that the Warriors get them? Everything's in the Broncos' favour. They should win. And I think for Warriors to win, Broncos have got to contribute to their own demise, which they can do. Penrith won't contribute to their own demise. And that's why I think Penrith will win. But the Broncos, if Warriors can apply the pressure in the right areas and stick with them long enough, there is that little nagging thought in my mind that Broncos can contribute to their own demise. I don't think they will. I think the Broncos will win. I think it'll be a Panther-Bronco grand final.
What a game.
That should be a great one.
All right, Panthers-Broncos for Gus. That's 6 tackles with Gus for this week. This time next week, we'll be talking about the grand final of 2023. See you over the weekend.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
With the finals around the corner, NRL on 9 has you covered.
From match highlights, press conferences, and don't forget, Fred in the 8.
Of course.
NRL on 9 has you covered for everything. One-stop shop.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a moment.